I'm going to show you how to give your Squarespace images a retro film grain effect that resembles something similar to a Polaroid. You don't have to jump into a design tool or anything to process the images. This is all done using purely CSS. It affects the image block, the background image, and even the background videos. So let's dive in so you can see how I did it. So I started out by creating this simple single bio page for a fictitious content strategist. And I wanted to do something that was simple for site owners without them having to rely on a design tool like Photoshop or something like that to create the effect in every image that they would need to upload to the site. So I wanted to see if I could mimic an effect that would be created in something like Photoshop in CSS and apply it across all of the images on the site, including the background videos. For this page, I chose a retro color theme with really loud colors because I wanted to do something that was a little more exaggerated so that I could really lean into this effect more. So as you can see here, this is the page without the effect applied. You can see the images are a lot sharper, the color is really standing out a lot more. And it does seem to take away some of the focus from the content on the page. And as you can see, it makes it a little more difficult to read text when it's over the image. Once the effect is reapplied, you can see that the text is easier to read over this image and everything gets dialed back a little bit and blends into the design a little bit better. So I actually started out in Figma with this using the starter template that I have. I have a video on using Figma with Squarespace that walks through this, the setup of this template. So if you want to see that, I'll link it below. But as you can see, I just did the hero section here since I was just mainly trying to get the effect. So to create the effect, I really only did 4 things here. The first 2 were adding a noise and a blur filter. So just creating a little bit of a film grain effect and some blur to reduce the quality of the image and create more of that vintage Polaroid effect. I then added a layer to desaturate the color a little bit since I wanted to dial back the color before adding the next effect on top of that, which is the radial gradient. So I just created a gradient with this yellow and orange hue to it. I'll bump that up so you can see. Since I was going for the Polaroid effect, and that tends to have a little bit more of those yellows and oranges in it, I decided to use this orange and yellow gradient and dialed it back to 40% so it's just an overlay. Once I had my settings, I started recreating those in CSS. So you can see there's 3 main classes here. One for the image blocks, one for the background images, and one for the background videos. And to each of those classes, I was able to apply the filter of grayscale and blur. So that takes care of 2 of the effects in one line of CSS code. Creating the other 2 effects, I had to create these blank content items through pseudo classes. So I had to add before and after classes to each one of those 3 elements, and you'll see those pseudo classes are added to the parent containers of those assets. And once I had all those parent containers created, I could move into styling each one. And the first one was adding that radial gradient. So that can be done by adding a radial gradient to the background. So I just pulled the values that I had in Figma for each of these colors and set the opacity to the same value. The second part was adding the grain texture to the after pseudo classes, and that was done by using this encoded SVG in the background image. For the SVG, I just used this code to generate the noise. Once I had that generated, I used this URL encoder to paste in the SVG, and it gives you CSS ready code of the encoded SVG. Squarespace also has a built-in overlay effect, so you can add overlays to the image blocks, and there's a way to control the overlay of the background images but I was trying to create a better experience for anyone who would be authoring a Squarespace site. I know I went through some of this pretty fast, but if there's anything that you'd want me to do a deeper dive into in the future, please let me know in the comments, and I'd be more than happy to give further explanation of some of these things that I've been covering. Now that you've seen how this is done, hopefully you got some ideas on how you could apply this to your site. I'm going to leave links below to the resources and the code that I use so that you could try tweaking it for yourself. There's a lot of room for creativity here, and not everything that I used has to be used, so it's up to you on how you want to use it and apply to your site. So hopefully you learned something from this, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and hopefully I see you on the next one.